Welcome to Inglit Mirror. This is the fourth episode of Literary Mojo. Let's have a look.
Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, published in 1865 by Lewis Carroll, possibly the most famous and most analyzed children's book. It was first written as a present for the young Alice Liddell in 1864 and expanded with illustrations by Taniel. Alice's episodic journey through Wonderland involves characters who have become deeply embedded in English culture, notably the White Rabbit, the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, and the Mock Turtle, and contains parodies of the verse of Isaac Watts, Jane Taylor, Robert Southey, and others, commonly seen as a landmark nonsense text liberating children from didactic fiction. It has been interpreted as a complex political satire, a commentary on Victorian girlhood, and an exploration of death, sexuality, drugs, and nihilism. Carroll wrote an equally complex sequel, Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, published in 1871, in which the dreaming Alice walks through the looking glass where she finds that the pieces from her chess set are alive and inhabit a landscape modeled on a chessboard. Many famous characters, passages, and incidents associated with Alice are found in Looking Glass, including Tweedledum and Tweedledee, Humpty Dumpty, the Walrus and the Carpenter, and Jabberwocky. In performance, the two books are often combined. In 1890, Carroll produced the shorter, sentimentalized The Nursery, Alice for younger readers. All for Love or The World Well Lost, a tragedy by John Dryden, produced and published 1678, written in blank verse in acknowledged imitation of Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. It is Dryden's most performed and his best known play. It concentrates on the last hours in the lives of its hero and heroine. In contrast to Shakespeare's play, it is an exemplary neoclassical tragedy, notable for its elaborately formal presentation of character, action, and theme. The Recruiting Officer, a comedy by George Farquhar, produced 1706 and performed more than 500 times during the 18th century. It is said to be the first play performed in Australia. It draws on Farquhar's own experience of military recruiting in country towns. Rebecca and Rowena, a humorous sequel by William Makepeace Thackeray to Scott's Ivanhoe, published as a Christmas book in 1850, with illustrations by Richard Doyle. Ivanhoe tires of domestic life with Rowena and after various comic vicissitudes is reunited with Rebecca. The Rape of Lucrece, a poem in the seven-line rhyme royal by Shakespeare, published 1594 and dedicated to Henry Wriothesley, Earl of Southampton. It is presumably the graver labor which he promised to the Earl in the dedication of Venus and Adonis the previous year. It is a highly rhetorical expansion of the story as told by Ovid and Livy. Ralph Roister Doister, the earliest non-English comedy by Nicholas Udall, probably performed about 1552 and printed about 1566, and perhaps played by Westminster boys while Udall was headmaster there. The play, in short rhyme doggerel, represents the courting of the widow Christian Custance, who is betrothed to Gavin Goodleg, an absent merchant, by Roister, a swaggering simpleton prompted by the mischievous Matthew Merrygreek. Roister is sent packing by Custance and her mates, and Goodleg, after being deceived by false rumors, is reconciled to her. The play is similar to the comedies of Plautus and Terence. Quentin Durward, a novel by Walter Scott, published 1823, set in 15th century France. Like many of Scott's novels, it deals with the breakdown of traditional chivalric values and the opposition of romance and reality. The Queen's Wake, a poem by James Hogg, published 1813. 17 bards hold a competition to welcome Mary Queen of Scots to Holyrood in 1561. The songs are verse tales in various styles. All is Lost by Lest, a tragedy by William Rowley, acted 1619, printed 1633. The story is taken from a legendary episode in Spanish history. The play remained popular throughout the 17th century and was twice adapted during the Restoration. The story is also the subject of W. S. Lanter's Count Julian and Robert Southey's Roderick.
Prothalamion, a spousal verse written by Edmund Spenser, published 1596 to celebrate the double marriage of Lady Elizabeth and Lady Catherine Somerset, the Earl of Worcester's daughters. Each verse ends with "Sweet Thames run softly till I end my song." Spenser formed the title on the model of his Epithalamion. The Prime Minister, a novel by Anthony Trollope, published 1876, fifth in the Palaces series. This austere novel was not among Trollope's popular successes. Reflections on the Revolution in France. Reflections on the Revolution in France by Edmund Burke, published 1790. The treatise was provoked by Richard Price' Discourse of the Love of Our Country, delivered November 1789, in which Price exulted in the French Revolution and asserted that the King of England owed his throne to the choice of the people, who are at liberty to remove him for misconduct. Burke repudiated this constitutional doctrine and contrasted inherited rights, which the English hold dear, with the rights of man, of the French revolutionaries, based on extravagant and presumptuous speculations, inconsistent with an ordered society and leading to poverty and chaos. Alton Locke, Tailor and Poet, an Autobiography. Alton Locke, Tailor and Poet, an Autobiography, a novel by Charles Kingsley, published 1850. Alton Locke, son of a small London tradesman and educated by a widowed Baptist mother, is apprenticed to a tailor in whose sweet shop he experiences at first hand the miseries of the working classes and becomes imbued with the ideas of Chartism. This section reuses material from Kingsley's pamphlet Cheap Clothes and Nasty on abuses within the clothing industry. Despite its propagandist stridency, Alton Locke is a powerful social document and had an impact similar to that of Benjamin Disraeli's Sybil and Elizabeth Gaskell's Mary Burton. The Portrait of a Lady, a novel by Henry James, published 1881, which describes the marriage of an idealistic heiress, Isabel Archer, to an American dilettante expatriate, Gilbert Osmond. He marries her for her fortune and ruins her life, but she remains loyal in spite of her realization of his vileness. The Poetics, a fragment of a treatise by Aristotle which greatly influenced the theory of neoclassicism. It is the source of the principles misinterpreted by later critics as the unities, and it also introduced many much discussed concepts related to the theory of tragedy, such as mimesis, catharsis, peripecia, and hamartia. Hubris was a form of hamartia. The Ambassadors, a novel by Henry James, published 1903, one of those in which James depicts the reaction of different American types to the European environment. Chadwick Newsom, the son of an overpowering Massachusetts widow, has been living in Paris and is reported to have entangled himself with a wicked woman. Mrs. Newsom has decided to send out an ambassador to rescue Chad in the person of the elderly, amiable, guileless Lambert Struther. The story describes Struther's evolution in the congenial atmosphere of Paris, his desertion to the side of Chad and the bewitching Comtesse de Vignotte, and his own mild flirtation with the pleasant cosmopolitan Maria Gostri. An accident throws Struther unexpectedly into the company of Chad and Madame de Vignotte in circumstances which leave no doubt as to the nature of their real relations. Sadly, disillusioned, but still insisting on the necessity of Chad's loyalty to Madame de Vignotte, Struther, from a sense of duty, turns his back on Paris. The Complete Angler, or the Contemplative Man's Recreation, a discourse on fishing. The Complete Angler, or the Contemplative Man's Recreation, a discourse on fishing, by Isaac Walton, first published 1653, second, enlarged edition 1655, fifth edition with a continuation by Charles Cotton 1676. Piscator, that means a fisherman, Ausape, a fowler, and Venator, a hunter, debate during a fishing expedition along the river Lee. There are instructions for catching and cooking fish, also interludes of verse, angling anecdotes, moral reflections, and snatches of mythology and folklore. Walton's idyllic, deeply nostalgic celebration of his calm, quiet, innocent recreation has become a classic, attracting readers not usually interested in fish or books, and is one of the most frequently reprinted texts in English literature. Certain Sonnets. 32 sonnets and poems by Philip Sidney, first printed in editions of the Arcadia, 1598. The last two sonnets, incorrectly used by 19th century editors to conclude Astrophil and Stella, are rejections of secular love. Bells and Pomegranates, the covering title of a series of plays and collections of shorter dramatic poems by Robert Browning, published in between 1841 to 1846, comprising Pippa Passes, published in 1841, King Victor and King Charles, published in 1842, Dramatic Lyrics, published in 1842, The Return of the Druses, published in 1843, A Blot in the Scutcheon, published in 1843, Columbi's Birthday, published in 1844, Dramatic Romances and Lyrics, published in 1845, and Luria and a Soul's Tragedy, published in 1846. The title derives from the Bible. The separate numbers were bound together and sold as a single volume after 1846. The Beggar's Bush, a drama by John Fletcher and Philip Messenger, possibly with Francis Beaumont. It was probably performed 1622, published 1647. Beachy Head, an unfinished poem in blank verse by Charlotte Smith, published posthumously in Beachy Head and other poems, published in 1807, which combines sublime imagery and natural description with historical narratives of war and nationhood alongside mournful meditation on the poet's personal unhappiness. The American Senator, a novel by Anthony Trollope, published 1877. Elias Gotobed, senator of the fictional state of Mickewa, comes to England on a fact-finding tour and finds irrational and salutary English manners and customs more than he can understand. In this quiet exposition of country life in and around the town of Dillsborough, two stories of courtship are highlighted. The first is a conventional Trollopian love triangle. The second highlights Trollope's dislike of the Victorian marriage market. Confessions of an English Opium Eater. Confessions of an English Opium Eater by Thomas de Quincey, published 1822. Enlarged version in 1856. A study of De Quincey's opium addiction and its psychological effects, tracing how childhood and youthful experiences are transformed under the influence of opium into symbolical and revealing dreams. The central experience for subsequent dream formations was his childhood loss of his sister, duplicated by the disappearance of the 15-year-old prostitute Anne, who befriended him during his months of homeless near starvation in London. The euphoric reveries of the early stages of his addiction and the appalling nightmares of the later stages are described in sonorous and haunting prose. Comus, a Mask. Comus, a Mask, presented at Ludlow Castle 1634 on Michaelmas night before the Right Honourable John Earl of Bridgewater, Lord President of Wales, by John Milton, first printed anonymously and untitled 1637. Written at the suggestion of Milton's friend, the composer Henry Lowes, to celebrate the Earl of Bridgewater's elevation to the presidency of Wales and the Marches. It portrays the abduction and enchantment of Bridgewater's 15-year-old daughter Lady Alice by the evil sorcerer Comus, son of Bacchus and Circe, the failure of her brothers to rescue her, and her eventual release by Sabrina, goddess of the river Severn. An attendant spirit, disguised as a shepherd, is sent from on high to protect the young aristocrats and ensures that they are returned to Ludlow and presented to their parents at the end. Amoretti, a series of 89 sonnets, sonnets 35 and 83 are identical, by Edmund Spenser, which have been thought to illustrate the course of his courtship of Elizabeth Boyle. His marriage to her was celebrated in Prothalamion, which was printed following the Amoretti in 1595. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please share and subscribe.